Who tries to steal a house at sunrise? That's the thought that hits me the moment the security alarm screams through my cabin walls. Shrill, piercing, like the cry of a wounded animal echoing through the pines. I freeze for half a breath. Then instinct takes over, calm, deliberate, precise. I reach for my robe, check the clock, 5:17 a.m., and tap the monitor by the bedside table. On the screen, headlights slice through the mist curling up from my gravel driveway. A moving truck, white, box-shaped, too big for that narrow road. Behind it, a sleek black SUV. My chest tightens. Then I see her. Melissa. Her silhouette framed in the headlights, arms crossed, the kind of stance that says she thinks she's already won. The monitor flickers, and just then my phone buzzes. I answer. Helen. Mike's voice crackles through, low and steady. Sorry to wake you. Your daughter-in-law's here. Brought movers. Says she owns the place now. I pause, watching her bark orders to the men unloading boxes. That's all right, Mike. I say quietly. Let her in. Keep the cameras rolling. And make sure she signs the entry log. Mike hesitates. You sure, ma'am? I'm sure, I reply. Just keep a record of everything. The call ends. I set the phone down gently, then exhale. The air smells faintly of cedar and coffee from last night's pot. Bitter and cold now, but I take comfort in it. Because this isn't surprise. It's confirmation. I've been waiting for this morning. I walk past the mantel, the early firelight flickering across framed photos of Daniel. My son. His laugh frozen in time beside hers, Melissa. The perfect couple. Or so I thought. I glance out at the faint line of dawn bleeding through the trees. Somewhere below the slope, a raven calls. I always loved the mornings here, the quiet ritual of it. The stillness after a lifetime of noise. After I retired from teaching biology, I bought this cabin high above town, surrounded by firs and silence. It wasn't luxury, it was liberation. Just me, my books, my garden, and the small routines that grounded a life lived simply. These mountains taught me patience, stillness, but they also taught me to listen when something shifts in the wind. And lately, the wind's been whispering trouble. I catch my reflection in the window, gray streaks through auburn hair, eyes the color of mountain rain. People often mistaken my calm for softness. But calm isn't weakness. It's preparation. I pour myself a glass of water from the clay pitcher and sit by the window. Out there, Melissa walks like she's the queen of the hill. She's wearing a cream blazer. Who wears that to a mountain cabin at dawn? Boxes labeled kitchen, master bedroom, and personal items start piling up near my porch. The gall of it almost makes me laugh. When I first met Melissa, I thought she was polished, professional, and maybe a little too smooth. Daniel, bless him, was just happy. He'd bring her up every few weekends, filling the cabin with laughter. Our quiet dinners turned into long evenings where she'd charm my son with ambition talk and tight smiles. I wanted to believe in her. I truly did. But she's the kind of woman who looks at something peaceful and mistakes it for weakness. A knock breaks my thoughts. Not at the door, but from memory, years ago, the first time she entered my home. Mrs. Carter, she'd said, all sweetness and false reverence. You have such a lovely place. Her eyes darted everywhere, cataloging what she'd eventually claim. I didn't know then how prophetic that moment would be. Let her come, I whisper now, as if speaking to the morning itself. Let her believe she's already won. Outside, the movers shuffle and grunt. I can hear Melissa giving directions, her clipped tone traveling through the cold air. Then, faint footsteps on the stairs to the porch. Mike's voice, muffled but firm. Ma'am, please sign this before entering. I don't need to sign anything, Melissa snaps. This is my house. Through the window, I see Mike, steady as a rock, holding his ground.
Good man.
Reliable. Knows better than to argue, but wise enough to keep the body camera flashing red. Ma'am, he insists, for record purposes only. She glares, but scribbles something on the clipboard. Her posture says annoyance. Her eyes say calculation. Inside, I reach for the antique key on the counter. I won't use it. Doors stay open today, but the weight of it in my palm comforts me. That key's been in my family for 3 generations. You don't own history by signing papers. Melissa's laughter pierces the morning, a kind that doesn't belong here. Something in me straightens, a silent resolve. She thinks she's stepping into victory, but she's walking into her own unmasking. The floorboards creak as I move toward the door. My fingers brush the old brass handle. This cabin has been the backdrop of my healing, my reflection, my quiet triumphs. Today it becomes a witness. Before I twist the knob, I think of Daniel. My heart squeezes, not with anger, but something heavier. Regret. He's good at heart, just blind. He sees love where others play pretend. I whisper to the empty room. You'll understand soon, my son. The door swings open. The cold hits like truth, sharp and bracing. Melissa stands framed against the sunrise, arms folded, her features half in shadow. Good morning, Helen, she says, voice dipped in sugar. I smile slightly. You're early. I'd say right on time. She tilts her chin. I gave Daniel notice. I'm moving in. I own this house now. Her words hang in the crisp air between us, absurd and cold. A robin startles from the porch railing. For a moment, it's utterly still. Then I tilt my head, voice quiet but steady. Oh, Melissa, you really should have called before bringing movers. Especially since this cabin doesn't legally belong to anyone but me. The smallest flicker of confusion crosses her face.
Just for a heartbeat.
Then that polished smirk returns. We stand there, silence stretching like a drawn bow. Somewhere behind her, the movers shuffle awkwardly, waiting for permission to enter. Tell them to stop for now, I say. You might want to see yesterday's paperwork before you unpack. And that's when it happens, the tiniest crack in her confidence. The flicker of unease she can't quite hide. As she glances toward her car, I think, she has no idea what I did yesterday. Out here, in the whispering calm of the mountains, dawn has a way of revealing truth. And Melissa? She's about to learn that lesson the hard way. A sharp click of china echoes through the kitchen, my mug against the granite, not quite gentle, not quite angry. The old kettle exhales a cloud of steam, filling the cabin with the comforting scent of black tea and honey. For a moment, I savor it. The way the sunlight spills across my herb garden outside, dappling the battered tile with green and gold. The air tastes crisp, a little sharp from last night's storm. Peace, in its purest form. Or, at least, what passes for peace these days. As I stir my tea, I replay the earlier confrontation in silence, Melissa's smugness, the chill in her voice. But for now, the house is still mine. I'm Helen Carter, 70 years old, retired teacher, lover of solitude and small-order routines. It's funny how people think solitude is something to pity. To me, it's always been a shield. My life flows on simple rails, garden first, then breakfast, a walk to the pond, a quick check on emails for any messages from Daniel. I relish the soft click of my pruning shears, the redolent smack of rosemary on my thumb, the earthy perfume rolling off tomato vines. I always told my students, biology is not just science, but proof that life endures. Even after storms, everything strives upward, quietly persistent. Lately, though, I've noticed the weeds grow faster than I remember. Clusters of vetch spreading through the wildflowers. Maybe I'm slowing down, or maybe the world's gotten pushier. I head to the study where the morning sun warms stacked lesson plans and half-finished crossword puzzles. My favorite chair, worn soft by years, squeaks slightly as I sink into it. The pine boards creak, a familiar, battered symphony, while I reach for the battered photo on my desk. Daniel at 5, cheeks flushed with laughter, gap-toothed and mud-speckled. That boy who once clung to my hand on field trips, who trusted me to explain everything. That same trust, now so easily given to Melissa. The phone rings, a jarring note in the hush. Caller ID flashes. Daniel. Morning, Mom. His voice is bright, hurried. Did you get the care package? Melissa said you might need some new vitamins. A bolt of irritation. I force my voice steady. I appreciate the thought, Daniel, but please, no more supplements. I'm healthy as a mountain goat up here. He laughs, awkwardly. She just worries, about you being all alone. We both do. All alone. I bite back a sigh. They say it so easily, as if solitude is abandonment. I'm happiest with my books and my garden, sweetheart. But thank you. Really? He chatters about work, deadlines, seminars, some big pitch Melissa is orchestrating at her office. The conversation is warm, but there's an edge now, as if we're both reading from different scripts. He doesn't ask about my plans or projects, just my health, my safety, how much help I might need. As we talk, a shadow passes over the patio, a hawk gliding low. I watch it until it disappears behind the pines, and a note of unease tugs at me. Change is circling just out of sight. After we hang up, the cabin feels emptier. I water the geraniums in the window box, watching a trio of chipmunks chase each other across the mossy stones. Their tiny feet patter in the hush, a sweet reminder that some things, at least for now, remain unchanged. The front door swings open. Mike's face appears in the frame, capped with a knit beanie, cheeks ruddy from the mountain air. "Thought you might want these," he says, holding out a bundle of mail. Melissa was still fussing with the movers when I left. Said she'd call Daniel if you made things difficult. I take the letters. My fingers linger on one, handwriting suspiciously neat. Melissa's style, precise, bordering on cold. As Mike lingers on the step, sympathy flickers in his eyes. "They ever stop trying to run your life, Helen?" he asks with a wry smile. I grin. If they did, I'd probably worry even more. He snorts and tugs his hat. "Lock your doors extra tonight, just in case." As he leaves, the cabin grows silent again, but this time the quiet hums differently, a tension under the floorboards, a question I can't yet answer. Later, tending the beans in the garden, my mind drifts. I recall Melissa's first real smile, a rare thing, brittle at the edges. A woman who measures people the way a banker measures coins. Her questions at our first dinner. "Do you keep a will, Mrs. Carter? Isn't the property a lot for one person?" Polite, yes, but hungry. I started writing things down after that. Phone calls, peculiar conversations. Just a habit at first. But it's become a record, now. A hedge against the way memory sometimes distorts. The theme of the day, vigilance. Or perhaps resilience. A branch snaps in the woods. I stiffen, half expecting to see Melissa at the edge of the property. But it's only a deer, pausing, ears cocked, before bounding away. Still, my pulse won't quiet so easily. As dusk settles, I retreat to the kitchen. The hulking moving truck is gone. The porch is empty. But on the kitchen table, a single envelope remains. My name, written in Melissa's careful script. Inside, a formal letter. Legal language. A hint that, perhaps, the storm is only gathering. I turn it over in my hands, and for a moment, I catch my own reflection in the window, face lined with years and heartburned by worry, but my eyes still resolute. This place is mine. The piece I've carved here has teeth. And I will fight for it, quietly and fiercely, however the conflict comes. Night hushes the mountains. But in the shadows, I fortify my resolve, certain that the real battle is yet to begin. "You don't mind if I sit here, do you, Helen?" Just 4 words, lightly spoken, but the way Melissa delivers them, while sliding into my favorite chair at the dining table, sets my teeth on edge. There's a crispness in the air tonight, lingering frost sharpening the pines outside, and the heater hums against the chill. Inside, the kitchen glows with lamplight and the scent of rosemary chicken, garlic, and warm bread. On the surface, the setting is cozy, almost idyllic, but every sound, every gesture, seems charged with something invisible and sharp. Daniel beams across the table, oblivious. "Melissa makes the best apple tart," he says, eyes twinkling. She insisted on bringing dessert. Melissa's lips quirk, gracious and self-satisfied. "Oh, I just wanted to show you a little appreciation, Mrs. Carter." Daniel says you love homemade things. I force a smile, smoothing my napkin in my lap. That's very kind, Melissa. And please, call me Helen. My own voice sounds overly careful, as if I'm tiptoeing through an unfamiliar minefield. She glances over her shoulder, scanning my tiny bookshelf. You're very resourceful out here. So many practical skills. I told Daniel you remind me of my grandmother, so self-sufficient, all the way until the very end. Her eyes flicker back to me, calculating. It must get lonely, though. The dart lands, swift and soft, cloaked in politeness. Daniel rubs his hands, looking from one woman to the other, clearly aware that something's unspoken but lost on the meaning. I gather the salad, carrying it to the table. The room is warm, but under my sweater, my skin tingles with distaste. We all find our peace in our own ways. I manage, my words laced with a gentle finality. Melissa's smile never slips. Absolutely, she agrees. There's just so much to manage, isn't there? Property taxes, repairs, all sorts of paperwork. I told Daniel I'd love to help if you're ever overwhelmed. I can't quite decide if she's genuinely offering or already planning to take the reins. Thank you, but I manage fine. I say, steady, the subtlest ice beneath my words. She folds her hands. Of course. Still, sometimes it's good to have someone younger step in and help with decisions. Especially as things get complicated. In the future. Daniel's face lights up as if she's offered to repaint the porch, not invade my autonomy. Melissa's incredible with logistics, Mom. She keeps me on track with everything. I nod, forced, and take a sip of water. The glass is heavy, grounded, the opposite of how I feel right now. The knife in Melissa's hand flashes as she slices the bread. Her movements are precise, almost clinical. You must have so many memories here, she says, letting the pause linger. Have you ever thought of moving closer to town? Somewhere more manageable. The air between us tightens. This cabin is my home, I reply, a quiet tremor in my voice. My friends, my routines, my life, they're all here. Her gaze lingers a beat too long, smile stuck. Of course. But it'll be a lot to handle, once the years catch up. For an instant, I see something hunger-like in her expression. Not the warmth of a welcome daughter-in-law, but a glimmer that says she's already measuring drapes and banking on my weaknesses. The meal continues, Melissa asking about contingency plans, Daniel offering to help rearrange the attic. Their concern walks just this side of patronizing, and I feel myself shrinking in my own home. After dinner, Melissa stands to collect the dishes. She moves through my kitchen with the confidence of ownership, as if she's mapping out the cupboards for some future move. I watch her silently. The way she lists what needs updating: stove knobs, wobbly chair, the roof sage. Daniel joins her, his affection blinding, agreeing with every suggestion. When she finds the old wool tucked among recipes, she pauses. It's good you have this, Helen. But it's a little out of date, isn't it? I freeze. That's private, I say quietly, retrieving the folder. Melissa doesn't flinch. She just presses a faint smile into her lips. Just looking out for the family, she says. Paperwork is the backbone of security. As we say our goodbyes, Daniel hugs me, warm and hopeful, completely missing the ice in the air. Melissa really does want to help, Mom. She talks about you all the time. I nod into his shoulder, heart aching. I know, sweetheart. After they leave, I stand among untouched crumbs and tangled memories, breathing in the sense of garlic and threat. The cabin, once a sanctuary, feels subtly seized, contours shifted, shadows lengthened. I notice her perfume lingering in the hallway, sweet but cloying, as if marking territory. That night, as storms rumble over the mountains, I write in my journal by candlelight, notes about Melissa's probing, her unnerving curiosity, the way she tried to charm and conquer at once. The rain pelts harder, a percussive warning on the roof, as if nature itself senses something off. I find sleep slowly, haunted not by wild animals or distant thunder, but by the memory of a polite smile that never reached the eyes. Somewhere deep inside, I sense the ground beginning to shift. The first cut has been made, however invisible. And tomorrow, I will begin to sharpen my own knives. The phone vibrates on the kitchen counter, shattering an afternoon hush as brittle as thawing ice. My hands, cracked from hours in the soil, pause mid-wash beneath the warm tap. A sudden flutter in my chest. Daniel never calls twice in one day unless there's news. I dry my palms on an old dish towel, heart thudding with a dread I dare not name. Outside, a storm gathers over the far ridge, dark bruises crawling the sky. I answer. His voice stumbles out, barely containing excitement. Mom, you're not going to believe it. Melissa and I, we're engaged. For a heartbeat, joy stirs in me. The little boy who once plucked bouquets of weeds for my birthday now pledges forever to a woman I barely know, barely trust. Oh, Daniel, I manage, wishing every syllable felt less forced. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you both. He's already running ahead, outlining plans, anticipation tumbling from him like river water over stones. The words blur behind my pulse. Melissa's parents want an autumn wedding. She wants you to help with flower arrangements. We'll visit next weekend. She has ideas for making the cabin, more modern. Something tightens in my throat. That sounds lovely. Outside, wind pushes against the windows, persistent, searching. After the call, I stand in the middle of my kitchen, a smile fixed on my mouth as the last daylight fades. The shadows that gather in the corners of my home feel different, sharper, pressing. Melissa isn't just passing through anymore. She's drawing Daniel with her, further each day from the warmth we once shared, into a world where every affection is transactional and every promise has fine print. Later, I phone Ruth, my old friend and lawyer. The long-distance crackle disguises my unease. He's marrying her, Ruth, I whisper. Ruth sighs, her voice weighted by years of listening. You can't lose yourself protecting Daniel from his choices, Helen. But you can protect what's yours. I hear the drawer in my study, the one with mortgage deeds and a fading picture of Daniel on his first day of school, sliding open in memory. She wants to help me organize my affairs. I tell Ruth, bitterness curling the words. Keeps pressing about my will, as though my life's just a set of tables to balance. That's not love, Helen. Not from her. Ruth replies quietly. It's calculation. I sleep restlessly that night, the storm outside matching the turmoil in my chest. Dreams tangle and break, Daniel drifting farther down a foggy path, Melissa's shadow elongating behind him. When dawn finally shivers the windows, I feel older by a decade. Melissa's influence is everywhere now. Daniel's calls become check-ins, concern layered atop subtle criticism. You really ought to let Melissa manage your prescriptions, Mom, he says.
She's good at details.
She just wants to help. In the local grocery, Mrs. Whitby leans over the carrots. Your Daniel's fiancé came by, she chirps. Asked after your health. Such a thoughtful girl, that Melissa. She says you forget your groceries sometimes. My insides ice over. I keep a list, I reply, perhaps too sharply. Driving home, I rehearse confrontations that never come to pass. What would I say if Daniel asked what I really think of his fiancée? That she's charming, a little too charming? That power, once tasted, rarely lets go? I say nothing. The next day, Daniel and Melissa arrive for dinner. There's a different gravity to them. He's lighter around her, deferring even in small gestures. She surveys my home with an appraiser's gaze. We'll have to redo this bathroom, she jokes, fingering the cracked tile. Modern fixtures. Maybe a skylight for more light. Daniel nods. Melissa has great vision, Mom. I watch them together, counting the ways my son bends to fit her shape. We sit down to eat. Conversation meanders through wedding plans, guest lists, color schemes. Whenever I try to steer things back to memories, to laughter, Melissa redirects. We'll need a plan for after the ceremony, Helen. Daniel and I might move here, at least until we find somewhere bigger. Wouldn't that be fun?
Would it?
The question knots my gut. The cabin's a bit cramped for three. I manage. She laughs. I like cozy places. She glances at Daniel, who's looking down at his napkin, silent. Suddenly, I see the boy who once turned to me for every answer, now ceding ground to another mapmaker altogether. After dessert, Melissa stands, brushing invisible crumbs from her blouse. Helen, have you considered power of attorney paperwork? It's just sensible, should anything happen. Thunder rattles the windows. I grip the table edge, steadying myself against an invisible onslaught. My affairs are my own for now, I say softly but firmly. She steps closer, the dim light casting lines across her features. Of course. It's just, Daniel worries, and I promised him we'd take care of you. Together. For a moment, time stills. In that hush, I glimpse the future. My home no longer mine, my decisions no longer my own, my son gently, willingly handed over to someone who weighs love against leverage. After they leave, I lock the door, leaning heavily against the wood. My sanctuary has become a front line in a war I never asked for. But as the wind howls across the ridge, something inside me steals. A ring can bind, yes, but it can also create a rift. Tonight, I vow not to let mine become a noose. A splatter of rain against the porch roof, heavy and persistent, finds me awake before sunrise. I cradle my mug, watching rivulets crawl the kitchen window, tracing jagged paths across glass. Every crack, every shadow, seems sharper now, a reminder that the house I made a home is quietly, steadily being claimed by someone else. At first, the visits from Daniel and Melissa were spaced, polite, weekends and holidays, predictable as the changing seasons. Now, Melissa's car crunches up the gravel drive almost daily. Sometimes Daniel is with her, but just as often, she arrives alone. This morning, she hovers in my kitchen, brightly casual. I brought you some groceries. It's just easier if I do your shopping now. Saves you the drive, she says, placing bags on the counter like a badge of kindness. Inside, I ache with anger and gratitude in equal measure. On one hand, the help is convenient. On the other, it's a golden leash. You shouldn't go out of your way, Melissa. Really, I say, forcing a smile. She shrugs, moving through my cupboards as if cataloging the contents. It's no trouble. Daniel and I both worry, There was some talk about falls at the rec center, Mrs. Whippy slipped. Maybe you could use a safety bar in your shower. Beneath her concern lurks calculation. Now, even the house seems to cower, walls narrowing, floorboards groaning with each step she takes. My sanctuary feels less mine. The subplot with Ruth, my lawyer and old friend, grows in urgency. Ruth calls late that night, her voice low and steady. Helen, I've been looking over your property deed. Under state law, any transfer requires witnesses. Don't sign anything without me present. Promise? I promise, pressing the phone to my ear as if her words might fortify the walls themselves. Meanwhile, Daniel's role in this drama blurs with every visit. He lingers awkwardly between us, his manner gentler, more hesitant. Melissa only wants what's best, Mom, he says one evening, helping me bring wood in from the shed. Rain slicks his hair, and his eyes dart to the windows. But sometimes I worry she's pushing too hard. This confession opens a fissure. I glimpse the uncertainty beneath his loyalty, the boy who still looks for comfort in my approval. Love isn't about control, Daniel, I say softly, my hand on his shoulder. It's about trusting someone enough to let them be themselves. He nods, silent, and I wonder if the seed of doubt has finally lodged in his heart. Subplots swirl in the background. My neighbor, old Mr. Lowell, stops by with news. Strange, your daughter-in-law was asking about boundary markers, he mutters, eyes narrow. Said she was updating the property lines for some surveyor. Another puzzle piece, another knot of tension. Why redraw boundaries if not to reshape what's mine and what's theirs? One afternoon, I find Melissa rearranging my medicine cabinet. You've doubled up on some of these, Helen, she announces, discarding expired bottles. I'll keep a list and bring what you need next week. My patience thins. Please leave my things as they are, I say, trying and failing to keep the steel from my voice. She flashes a smile, cool and unconcerned, as if my protest is merely a gentle breeze. I want to make your life easier. That's all. Afterwards, I write pages in my journal, notes about Melissa's behaviors, glimpses of Daniel's struggle, Ruth's advice about legal caution, even the shifting attitudes of neighbors. Every detail, every suspicion, like stones laid for a path toward confrontation. The dynamic between Mike, the security guard, and Melissa becomes a subplot of its own. He watches her with skepticism. She responds with clipped politeness. Mike catches her trying to disable a porch camera one morning. Just checking if the batteries needed replacing, she lies smoothly, but he says nothing, logging the incident like a soldier marking enemy movements. The house, always my fortress, now feels surrounded on all sides. My routines, planting, cooking, reading, are all shadowed by the knowledge that someone wants to own not just my home, but my history. A plot twist arrives with a letter in Daniel's handwriting, slipped into my mailbox one chilly evening. Melissa wants us to take over the cabin after the wedding. She says it's practical. But I keep remembering the summers the first spent here.
I don't want to lose you, Mom.
I don't want to lose this place. The note isn't signed, rushed, as if he fears discovery. Hope flickers somewhere inside, threaded through fresh doubt. As midnight rain lashes the windows, I pace the halls, tracing the new cracks in the plaster. Every sound, every burst of wind, carries the warning that a climax looms just ahead. Tonight, the house is not just divided, it's under siege. But I am not yet defeated. I move through the darkness, fortifying my spirit with memories and resolve. The battle for home and heart has not been lost, only begun. I had always believed that the mountains would keep out the world's worst noise, but I was wrong. Sometimes, the worst finds new ways to slip in, through a closed door, a cracked window, or the careful, poisoned words of someone who wants what you have. It started as a whisper on market day. Mrs. Whitby, with her nervous fingers on a shopping cart, sidled up close enough for me to smell rose water and suspicion. "Helen, dear, don't forget your purse again," she murmured, louder than needed. "Must be all that fresh air. Easy to lose track of things at your age." A forced laugh from the other side of the bananas. "My cousin's daughter says Helen locked herself out twice this month," someone chimed in. Heat crept up my neck. I clutched my shopping list, suddenly unsure whether I'd ticked off everything, a trick of the mind I'd never doubted before. The looks, the stifled grins, they pricked at my composure like nettles. I checked out quickly, chest tight, every friendly nod now double-edged. The walk home hurt more than usual. My ankle throbbed. Old pain returned not from climbing but from humiliation. How easily they believed I'd grown frail, forgetful. How easily a single rumor, repeated enough, blooms into fact. That night, I sat at my desk, light flickering on creased paper as I wrote a cold new truth. Melissa had been laying this groundwork for weeks, maybe months. Dropping hints, quietly building a case. If she could convince the town I was slipping, it would be that much easier to make Daniel and anyone else think taking control of my life was an act of mercy, not theft. I thought of Daniel, then. How he'd started listening a little more to Melissa each time I stumbled, forgetting the hose on too long, misplacing the car keys, burning dinner by accident. Things anyone might do, but now they were cataloged, evidence of decline. That evening, I called Ruth, my voice thin. "She's poisoning the well, Ruth. Not just in the courts or in the house, she's making everyone doubt me." Ruth's sigh scratched through the phone line. "You need proof, Helen.
Journal everything.
Record what you can. Memory serves, but paper defends." So I did. But keeping a record didn't fill the rooms Melissa had emptied of trust. The next morning, Daniel called. His voice was soft, edged with worry. "Melissa thinks maybe we should look into more help for you, Mom. She says people have seen you forget things. Maybe you're lonely out there." The words didn't just scratch, they cut. "Daniel, do you think I'm losing my mind?" Silence crackled between us. "It's not that," he hedged, but I could hear it, the shift. "I just want what's best." Melissa had done it. She'd made my son, my anchor in this world, question my grip on reality. I went for a walk, boots sinking into wet loam, wind rattling bare branches. The cold bit as fiercely as my sorrow. Each footfall was a question. Had I misplaced my own memory, my autonomy? Or was this simply the sharpest blade Melissa had yet wielded? Mike, ever stalwart, stopped by. Heard what's going around, he said, setting down a bag of apples. Saw Melissa at the coffee shop, talking low. She's got folks thinking you shouldn't be alone. You okay? I managed a brittle laugh. I'll be fine. The words tasted like lies. He watched me, weighing silence. I trust you, Helen. Always have. Let me know if things get strange. His faith steadied me, momentarily. But alone, the doubt and pain returned. I watched shadows lengthen on my kitchen walls and wondered if I was as invisible as Melissa wanted me to be. I started documenting everything. The times she arrived unannounced, the questions she asked neighbors, the items I found moved or missing. The smallest details mattered. It wasn't just for myself now, it was a matter of survival. The betrayal stung not because it was clever, but because it was so insidious. She hadn't laid a single hand on me or raised her voice. She'd simply leaned into people's expectations of women my age, unseen, unheard, presumed fragile. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the cabin, running fingers over photographs, the grooves of old furniture. My solitude felt less like a choice and more a sentence. The moon trembled in the pond outside, pale and uncertain in its reflection. But somewhere in that darkness, a spark of defiance returned. Melissa was winning now, yes. But I knew her game. I could adapt. A storm was coming, and this time, I would be ready. The night after Melissa's rumors reached their crescendo, I found myself by the window long after midnight, watching a thin fog slip between the black shapes of pines. Rain tapped the glass softly, as persistent as doubt. My cabin felt different. Not smaller exactly, but its edges seemed sharper, every familiar sound echoing with new meaning. I gripped my mug, seeking warmth, and let memory have its way with me. It was another life, the cool, humming classroom, children's voices rising. Mrs. Carter, will you check my project? All those years as a teacher, learning that patience and vigilance were not contradictions, but allies. That the world seldom rewards those who let their guard down completely. A flashback. Daniel at 8, curled beside me reading about insects, fascinated by the idea of metamorphosis. Why do some things have to change, Mom? He'd asked, a hint of sorrow under his curiosity. So they can survive, I told him. Nothing strong comes from staying soft forever. The memory glowed now, bittersweet as aged honey. He was still that boy somewhere, good, trusting, just lost behind a different shell. Returning to the present, my resolve hardened. If Melissa wanted to weaponize perception and bureaucracy, I would answer with cunning and caution of my own. The lesson was simple. She'd underestimated the quiet. The next morning, I met Ruth at her office downtown. A dog-eared stack of folders separated us, the smell of black coffee and old carpet filling the dim room. Ruth scanned forms, her tired eyes softening as she looked at me. You need to protect your legacy, Helen. And yourself. Her voice was low, urgent. We walked through the options. A trust fund, locking the cabin and its land beyond anyone's easy reach. Strict power of attorney rules. New witnesses for all documents. As Ruth spoke, I felt something flicker and burn, a spark of the educator, the mother, the survivor. Not just defending my house, but my story. I want everything documented, I said. Cameras, logs, all of it. If she tries anything, there will be no question. The words came out steadier than I felt. In that moment, planning was power. As we finished signing papers, a sudden memory rose. My grandmother in her kitchen, scrawling her name with shaking hands on a battered deed. You aren't just keeping a roof, Helen, she'd whispered. You're keeping a piece of yourself. I realized then this fight was more than names on documents. It was the fight for my right to exist, unmanipulated, in the world I'd built. Back at home, I set about sealing the cracks. Mike helped install new security cameras, nodding approval at every fresh wire. No one slips through now, Helen. Not without you knowing. I thanked him, hearing an unspoken promise.
Support is a funny thing.
Sometimes it's loud and obvious, but more often, it's something solid just outside your sight line. A neighbor, a legal file, a loyal friend. That evening, I walked my land. The Vermont air was sharp, rosemary and pine mixed with the memory of old bonfires. I ran my hand over weathered bark, grounding myself in the living history of this place. Inside, I recorded everything. Every odd noise, every phone call, every time Daniel hesitated. I looked myself in the eye in the bathroom mirror and saw not a victim, but a woman tempered by storms. Resilience, real, raw, sometimes lonely, shone back in my lined face. I typed a message to Daniel before sleep. Son, I hope you remember the stories we made here, before all the worry. This place is more than lumber and stone. It's the heart of who we are.
I didn't send it yet.
But the words felt like a wall, sturdy and ready. Moonlight painted silver streaks across my bedroom floor. Everything was hushed except for the buzzing sense of something impending. The final confrontation was coming. I could feel it in my bones, as sure as spring follows frost. But this time, I was ready to fight back, not just for the house, but for the part of me Melissa never understood. In the stillness, I understood. The real defense is knowing your own strength, even when the world insists you're weak. The day dawns crisp, air humming with the promise of confrontation. I wake before the alarm, muscle memory tuned to readiness. Gone are the tremulous nights and quiet dread. I am steady, adrenaline sharp as razors. Every movement feels purposeful, every breath the opening line of a battle hymn. In the kitchen, I scribble a list. Lock file cabinet. Prep backup phone. Set extra batteries in foyer. The letters feel like soldiers on a map. My hands are sure as I post the logbook by the entryway and check that every camera LED blinks its red assurance. Melissa's move-in operation is scheduled for 6 a.m., something smug in the audacity of her precision. To her, surprise is just another tool. But she's 3 steps behind. Mike parks his truck behind the gate, greeting me with a wordless nod and a flask of strong coffee. Everything's set, he mutters, casting a look toward the end of the drive where clouds of dust swirl. The moving truck, punctual to the minute, and Melissa's black SUV gleaming like a hearse. We settle into a brief war council, low voices behind curtained glass. Police are on standby. Ruth's filed all the papers. Your trust deed and court injunction? They're digital, time-stamped, locked tight. Mike reassures. His words are stone and shelter. There's no fear in me, not now. Just the thrum of anticipation, a lioness defending her den. The trucks grind to a halt. Movers unsure, mill in the cold. Melissa clambers out, crisp blazer straight, phone in one hand, folder of papers in the other. Her eyes sweep the property, cool as winter water. She strides up the porch steps and bangs the knocker 3 times, a queen come to claim her territory. I open the door, calm, collected, the storm held behind a smile. Helen, we'd appreciate a smooth transition. Melissa snaps, waving her contract. You were notified about today's move. The truck needs to be unloaded, so please, let's not make this harder than it must be. Her voice is performance, each word edged with unearned victory. I set my jaw, letting her see the fire behind my eyes. Melissa, there's some paperwork you might want to look at first. It's all filed with Ruth Delgado, my lawyer. And I have footage documenting your visits and, well, some odd activity near my security system. She bristles but glances at Mike, who stands recording everything with his phone. Am I under some kind of surveillance now? She scoffs, appealing to the movers as if they're a jury. Mike steps forward. It's standard when property is under dispute. For everyone's protection, he states level. Melissa's jaw tightens. Daniel will hear about this. We're only trying to make sure you're cared for. If you want to call him, go ahead. I'm not dealing with these power games. I meet her fury, with ridicule's edge. Daniel's on his way. I say evenly. He has all the documents. In fact, he insisted everything be transparent. In this moment, Melissa's confidence flickers. She tries another angle. You're making this unnecessarily difficult, Helen. We're family. Family doesn't rewrite your story while you're still living it, I say, a cold steel in my words, echoing all the pain she's caused. The crescendo tightens, one mover, nervous, asks if they should start unloading. Melissa flares. Stand by. I need to know what's happening here. The air is thick, every second weighted with choice. I hand Melissa a sealed envelope, Ruth's letterhead unmistakable. She reads, brow furrowing, lips parting in shock as she processes the existence of the trust, the digital stamp, the explicit instructions. No individual may claim title, change possession, or modify estate without the living owner's authorized consent. Melissa looks up.
Her voice falters.
You can't do this, Daniel said. Daniel pulls in, gravel flying, face ashen as he reads the scene. Melissa, what is this? Realization dawns hard and fast. For a moment, everything hangs in the air. Resentment, betrayal, the ghosts of false concern and missed warnings. I turn to Daniel, voice softened by age and ache. Daniel, I love you, but I will not be erased in my own home. Not by anyone, no matter who they marry. He takes in my stance, the cameras, the witnesses. I watch something shift in him, attention giving way to clarity. Melissa's face is a mask cracking at the edges. This is insane. Call the police, Mike. Mike's radio clicks to life. Already here, he says, gesturing as a squad car slides in behind Daniel's. With the authorities present, my resolve does not waver. I explain everything, calm, detailed, while Melissa's voice rises, emotions boiling into confusion, then panic. Daniel hangs back, torn, watching the woman he loved unravel her own schemes. By the end, officers review Ruth's documents. The trust holds, the cabin remains mine, and Melissa is asked to leave pending investigation into her fabricated claims. The house seems to expand, breathing easier with every passing minute. I look at Daniel, my son, his face open, wounded, but searching for home in my eyes. You're safe here, Mom, he finally whispers. I promise. The rising sun glances off the windows, filling the cabin with gold. The worst is not yet over, but now, for the first time, the battle is joined on my own terms. This house, my legacy, remains mine. Not because I fought loudest, but because I fought with truth, preparation, and unbreakable resolve. And now, at last, the climax awaits. The heavy oak door creaks open, breaking the dawn's hollow silence like a gunshot. Outside, the storm clouds brood low, their slate gray pressing upon the mountain like a specter. The air is electric, heavy with anticipation, the kind that coils tight in the chest and sharpens every sound. Melissa stands at the threshold, shoulders squared, face set with practiced defiance. Behind her, a horde of movers waits, awkward and uncertain, caught between allegiance and the invisible line drawn tonight. The cold drizzle slicks her hair, but she holds her ground as if this cabin and all its history belong to her by right. I step forward, every nerve awake and steady. The years have taught me that calm is its own weapon, sharper than fury. Melissa, I say, voice low and clear, this ends now. Her eyes flash, a storm breaking beneath the surface. You think your trust and your cameras are enough? You don't know what I'm capable of. Maybe not yet, I reply, but I know enough to recognize when someone tries to steal my life. Her smirk tightens, lashes flicking. She gestures to the truck. I'm moving in, with or without your blessing. Not this time. I slide the envelope with court orders and Ruth's protective injunction onto the table between us. See here, legally binding. Your trespassing ends today. Tension snaps like a wire as she lunges forward, voice rising. I did all of this for Daniel's sake. For the family. You're the one tearing us apart. A thunderclap shakes the windows. The storm outside is no longer background. It's a torrent echoing the chaos within. I meet her gaze, unwavering. Family does not silence or steal, I say, and it certainly doesn't rewrite the past. The house creaks, the woods seeming to breathe with me, walls steeped in decades of memories, holding fast as witness. The scent of pine, damp earth, and warm cedar fills the space, grounding me in what's real and true. Daniel steps in, conflicted, shadowed by pain. Mom. Melissa, stop. Please. His voice breaks, the boy beneath the man struggling to rise. This isn't what either of you wanted. Melissa's facade cracks just enough for a flicker of despair, but she recovers fast, lashing back. You think I wanted to play villain? I did what I had to, because no one else would protect us. I shake my head. Protection built on lies is a prison. Her shoulders slump, the first sign of surrender or exhaustion, but before she can respond, a sharp knock at the door crackles through the storm's howl. The police arrive, summons in hand. Their presence is a punctuation mark, order reclaiming its place in the chaos. As Melissa is escorted away, her eyes briefly meet mine, no longer defiance, but resignation. The moment stretches thin, sharp and raw. I step outside, rain washing over me, baptismal and fierce. Daniel joins me, voice quiet. You were right, Mom. All along. I pull my coat tighter and watch as the storm begins to break. The house stands strong behind us, battered but unbowed. Tonight, justice is not just a word, it's a breath we both take back. The courtroom was quiet, but for the faint scribble of pens and the low murmur of anxious voices. I sat stiffly, the weight of years pressing into my shoulders like the mountain air outside, thin, bracing, and undeniably real. Melissa sat across the room, stripped of her polished armor, eyes cast downward as the judge read the verdict. Her fraud had been exposed not only through Ruth's meticulous paperwork, but through my own diligence, a record of yesterday's truths that dismantled her illusions. When the judge declared the cabin and its trust legally and irrevocably mine, my breath came slow and steady. This was no longer just a house, it was a testament of resilience. Outside the courthouse, Daniel found me standing beneath the wide gray sky. His eyes, clearer than ever, were glistening. I didn't see it before, Mom. I was blind. I smiled, softly, the pain of distance shrinking. You see now. That's what matters. He reached for my hand, tentative, but full of promise. I'm sorry for everything. I hugged him, feeling the years slip away like autumn leaves. The fight had cost us much, but it had also healed. Melissa's consequences were firm: legal intervention, loss of trust, and the slow unraveling of her own plans. Justice prevailed not with anger, but with measured truth. Back at the cabin, peace settled anew like fresh snow. The garden bloomed under my touch again, the creek sang its familiar song, and my home held the warmth of renewal. I started holding workshops, sharing my story to empower others, teaching them how to protect their lives, estates, and dignity. The lesson of yesterday was clear. Strength comes not only from endurance, but from courage and wisdom born through struggle. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the pines, I sat with my journal, writing the final lines. I am no one's shadow. I am my own light. And with that, I closed the book of this battle, ready to embrace the dawn of all the days to come. The cabin settles into a new rhythm, as if it, too, is sighing a long breath of relief. The shadows that once seemed so sharp now soften beneath the summer sun. I walk the garden paths, feeling the earth steady beneath my feet, the whispered promise of growth in every bud. Daniel visits often now, not out of duty or guilt, but with a tenderness forged from understanding. One afternoon, as we sit on the porch swing, he breaks the comfortable silence. Mom, I've started divorce proceedings with Melissa. It's the only way forward. There's pain in his voice, but also relief, like lifting a weight he didn't know he carried. I reach for his hand, my heart both heavy and light. I'm glad you're free to find your own peace, I say softly. Mike stops by with news from town. The gossip mill has slowed, the rumors fading like mist. People see you differently now, he says with a smile. Stronger, wiser. Maybe even a little famous for standing your ground. I chuckle. Famous isn't what I wanted. Just safe. The community that once questioned now looks toward me with respect. I've started hosting workshops on financial protection and empowerment, sharing my story to light a way for others. The fear and isolation that once threatened to consume me have become fuel for change. In quiet moments, I reflect on the twists and turns of this journey. Melissa's betrayal cut deeply, but it also revealed unseen strength within myself, a resilience rooted not just in survival, but in the determination to uphold truth and dignity. One evening, Daniel and I sit by the fire, the flickering flames casting warm light on lines softened by time and trial. "Thank you, Mom," he whispers, "for never giving up on me or on us." I smile, a deep peace washing over me. We were always stronger than we knew. As the fire dances, I know the story isn't just about a house or a fight. It's about reclaiming roots, identity, and hope. The mountains still stand, timeless and patient. And so do I. The first light of morning slips softly over the ridgeline, painting the sky in gentle strokes of rose and gold. I stand on the porch, breathing deep the crisp mountain air, pine sharp and sweet, and feel the quiet pulse of a life reclaimed. The cabin around me no longer feels like a fortress under siege, but a sanctuary renewed. Every weathered board, every creak and whisper carries a story of endurance, of battles fought not with brute force, but with steady courage. I run my fingers over the smooth oak railing, letting the rough grain ground me still, a reminder of the hands that built this place and the will that refuses to let go. Looking back, I see the journey laid plain, painful betrayals, fractured loves, and moments when hope seemed threadbare. But with every trial, I grew, learned to wield resilience like armor and wisdom like a sword. I think of Daniel, his quiet strength emerging from the rubble of deception, of Ruth's steady counsel, and Mike's unshakable loyalty. They are threads woven through the fabric of the story. My heart swells with the lessons life has carved into me. Independence is hard won, trust precious, and strength often whispers rather than shouts. I sip my morning tea, the warm spice blooming sweetly, and smile. I am no longer just Helen, the retired teacher, the lonely widow in a mountain cabin. I am Helen, the survivor, the guardian of her own story. The future stretches wide, unknown but inviting. Perhaps there will be new chapters, mentoring others, writing, maybe even opening the doors of this cabin to those seeking refuge. But for now, the moment is enough. The sun climbs higher, birds call out in joyful bursts, and the world around me stirs alive. I am home, whole, ready for whatever comes next.